Now, the beauty of South Africa is that there's so many different ways to say hello and to show connection. And that's one of the reasons that I love being here in this country. I needed to stand up here, number one, because I'm short, so I wouldn't be able to see you guys. And it's really good to just be in a space, and I wanted you to be able to see me. It really is a pleasure to be here today. And I know a lot of people say that when they come up here and they talk to you. But for me, when we moved to South Africa, I used to live in Plettenberg Bay before we moved to George. And for my children and my husband and the seagulls that were aggressive and eating the kids' lunches on the beach, I had a dream. I know that's very MLK. I had a dream that when my children finished primary school, they would come to York High, because you guys have the coolest jackets, it's blue and white. Shout out to all the other schools that are here as well. But York High is the most coveted school in the Garden Route region, coming from that side of the Garden Route. And I had my eye on it. I could already see the school uniform and the friendships and the future, the funky hoo-hoo chances that you guys do when, I'm trying to sleep at lunchtime, that you do during your rugby games. But life had other plans. And when we moved to George from Plet, my children attended completely different schools. But the closest I ever got to York High is, that white picket fence house across the street with the big tree? It's the only house with no wall. We used to live there. So I would watch the kids come in and out. But now having an opportunity to be here, it feels like speaking at Harvard. Yes, this is a really big deal for me. So thank you for inviting me. Thank you, Rotary Club. It's really good to be here. And thank you all for your attention. When I was asked to speak here, I said yes enthusiastically. And the reason is, you guys are the most honest audience on the planet. Your ages 13 to 19, as I've been told. You haven't yet learned how to fake being interested. I will know very quickly when I've lost you. You'll whisper between yourselves. If your cell phones are allowed in here, you'll get on your cell phones. You might just doze off and talking. All of these things were happening because once upon a time, even though it doesn't seem like it, I was a student just like you. And so if I do my job right, I will hold your attention for the 20 minutes, I know it's a long time, that I have been given to speak to you. Like I said, I never imagined I would have the opportunity to be here, but life takes you in different directions. I respect every one of you that is here, because you're here because you are developing leadership skills. And that's not something that is innate. That's something that is born out of curiosity and desire. And what I would like to do by way of introduction is, if I could have each of you stand up for a moment. Now wait. So you all know my name. I would like you to say your name. Could you say it a little louder? Rion. Thank you, Rion. You're the only one I can hear. Okay, you may sit down. It is lovely to meet you. And even though that sounded like a small murmur, that was an opportunity for connection that we all have. So I'm an author, and that means that I spend most of my time in my house or behind a desk or in a cafe somewhere, whispering to characters in my head and calling it work. Writers are deeply isolated people, and we prefer our laptops and pens and typewriters, if you're old school like me, and silence to lots of activity, unless we're people watching and creating other characters in our stories. So I really am grateful to the Rotary Club for pulling me out of my cocoon. And if you've ever seen the movie Finding Forrester, it's probably way older than anybody here. I'm kind of like the Sean Connery character, except with better hair. It's what? Okay, no. And also, it's fine. If you're like the type of audience member who likes to shout out things, my ADHDers, if you're in the house on the spectrum like me, please feel free to do so, because I don't want to just have a motivational speech. I want us to have a dialogue. And really, whether or not you guys are motivated isn't up to me. It's really up to you. Motivation is a spark, right? It's a tinder that's lit. What I would rather you have walking out of this space is determination. Motivation is like an energy drink. It gives you a boost for about 20 minutes, and then you hit a slump. But determination is what takes you through the boredom, the dark times, the doubt. And each and every one of you needs to walk out of here determined to meet your goal. The title of my speech today, the theme of my speech today, is actually the tragedy of a second-hand life. What do they call it in Afrikaans? Tweede, that thing. That's what I'm here to talk about today. But before that, I want to tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Abena Owusua Malaika Grant, born Jechi. Abena means born on Tuesday. Owusua means woman of courage or valor. Malaika means angel, and Jechi is a homonym. It means to bind and to scatter. And while I might sound American, I am actually bi-ethnic. I am Ghanaian by birth and by my father's parentage, and I am African American by my mother's parentage and ancestry. My name has made people smile. My name, Malaika, it has been the name of a group, a very popular group in South Africa, from what I understand. My name has also been the name of a song by Miriam Makeba. When I was born in 1978, cue the Jurassic Park music. And it has made people smile, but my name, Jechi, has also been used to mock me. And so when I asked you to say your names, I want you to say it with pride. And that's why I appreciate Rian. I can't see you from there, you are. For saying your name with such pride, because your name tells a story. Your name is a shield. Your name is what gives you renown. Sometimes before we even know what a person looks like, we know their name. So have deep, deep pride in your name. And if you don't know the origins and the history of your name, I encourage you to ask your parents or whoever ever named you, why did you give me that name? What hopes and aspirations did you have for me in that naming? So as I said, my parentage is both bi-ethnic. It's African American and it's Ghanaian. My mother's family was brought to the Americas during the transatlantic slave trade. And as far as I can trace back, they were some of the first people who were enslaved in Virginia. And through the process of not migration, but rather being sold and separated from their families, they ended up scattered around the southeastern seaboard from Virginia to Ohio to Kentucky, eventually being freed after emancipation, and then, and then seeking better opportunities. So we do have family in New York. My father's side of the family is from Ghana, like I said, and from a town specifically called Latte. Latte is a mountainous town. It's in a mountainous region, and they settled there after migrating and escaping war. So migration is in my blood, movement is in my blood. And I know for a lot of people who live now in George, migration is in your blood too. Who here was born in George, or who had family that moved to George? That's quite a bit of you. That's a lot of you. So movement, migration, connection is part of the story that we tell ourselves. So I'm here to talk about what is a secondhand life. And specifically, I'm excited to talk to this group because each of you here is special. So spoiler alert, if you're here today, if you're walking around, if you're conscious, you are a miracle. And I'm sure you've heard this before. If you ask a biology student about the reproductive process, you will understand and know that the probability of creating a human being is very, very low. The chances are very, very difficult. So by virtue of the fact that you are alive, that you're breathing, that you're as brilliant as you are, is a miracle in itself. And so that is why it's really important to understand the value of your life and to look forward to applying the grace that you've been given in your life and not live what I call a secondhand life. And I'll explain what I mean by that. I grew up wearing secondhand clothes, and some of them were cute, and most of them were not. And they kept me warm, but they were never mine. They were something that I inherited. Usually they were shaped by somebody else's body and somebody else's life and their life experiences. And when I had to wear them, I had to adjust them to myself. So you had to pull the collar because somebody else had worn it before you and it was too large. Or the shoes didn't quite fit because they had indented the toes of their feet and you had to slide your feet forward to make sure that you could walk in these shoes. and shuffle along in these items that really didn't fit you. And you learn to accept that discomfort as normal. Now imagine doing that not just with clothes, but with your life. Your opinions, your dreams, your relationships, all living according to somebody else's script. And that is the tragedy of a secondhand life. We are all on a quest to answer a central question: who am I? And within that line of questioning, we ask ourselves, what is the purpose of our being here? You will never get an honest answer to that question if you do not interrogate and if you are content with living a secondhand life. My friend, the Nigerian poet, Wana Udabang, says that honesty is of greater value than authenticity. You can live an authentically secondhand life, after all, but honesty requires deeper inner work. It is born of curiosity and originality. Honesty is the root of authenticity. It informs it. So let's see together if we can ask ourselves some honest questions to get some answers here today. And I'll start by telling you some truths about myself, a tragic life that I've witnessed, and observations of the timeline that we find ourselves in the continent. And I will share this in 3 parables. Why 3? 3 is a magic number. It is the cornerstone of structure, memory, and divine harmony. Some examples of 3 are the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, yes, no, maybe so. Storytelling is told in 3 acts, 1, 2, and 3. And did you know that if you repeat a phrase 3 times, you can stop theft? Swipe or no swiping. Swipe or no swiping. Say it with me. Swipe. There we go. We've saved the world. So let's begin with some Skinnering. Parable number 1 is love and expectations. So let's talk about gender expectations. I know I said I was born in the 1970s, and that puts me in a very early era, but many of the expectations put on women in my era still exist today. It was expected that I would get married soon after university, but if I'd had my way, I would have gotten married immediately after graduating from high school. That's what you did as a girl. That's what the Disney Channel told us to do. You find the cute guy who gives you butterflies and you marry him. And I know a few of you think you have found your soulmate right now, today. And I'm going to tell you that many of you are going to experience premium heartbreak because you are living in a secondhand prison. Now, funnily enough, as I was walking in here, I saw on one of the pillars outside, I wish I'd written it down, but somebody had written, don't chase him, replace him. So obviously this is red pill philosophy that has made its way to the grounds of Mead Street out here, but you know. But when you're young, you have very heightened emotions. And I think that a lot of us who come up here and we do these speeches don't really acknowledge or even want to admit that as young high school students, as young red-blooded human beings, you have these strong emotions. And it's important that you have these strong emotions because, again, that's what's going to fuel your determination. So like I said, I'm going to tell you some truths today. I have a dear friend who worked in finance in a Fortune 100 company for many years. And as is the case for 50% of marriages, her marriage ended in divorce. But not before her ex-husband ruined her finances, her mental health, and abandoned her and the kids. And his actions were so heinous, diabolical, and iniquitous that she was forced to leave New York City and move to a different, completely rural era and start again. And she and I went to high school together. We promised ourselves that if we ever found ourselves in front of a group of students and youth, that we would tell you guys the truth. And we remarked about how astonishing it is that in these motivational talks that nobody talks to you about love. Not often enough do we acknowledge the intensity of the love that you are feeling and how much it drives you in your motivations. And so I also want to tell you a little bit about my life. While my friend didn't marry her high school sweetheart, I married my college sweetheart. He's sitting in the back today. Don't clap yet. Don't clap. It wasn't all good. And so, yes, you see me up here today, and I'm beautiful, and I'm confident, and I've got my shoulders back. But it wasn't always this way. Early in my marriage, society, the circles that we ran in, and even amongst ourselves, I was prohibited from doing the things and saying the things and thinking the thoughts that made me me. My whimsy was suppressed. It wasn't considered proper. And so I began to shrink myself, I gave up on my interest, and I began to live a secondhand life. Almost every opinion I had about mothering and being a wife was something that I studied and regurgitated from an approved television program or some book that somebody said, you should read this. This is going to reframe your mind. And eventually, I lost interest in my life in general and had no interest in what its meaning might be. And that is the sadness of a secondhand life. So listen carefully. Choose who to love with care, because it will shape your life as much as what you study does as well. Now, shout out to my husband. We worked through some things, and we are here now and happy together, but that is because I cast away those secondhand opinions that were never mine in the first place. Parable number 2 is the comfort of avoidance. Now, we live in the Garden Route, and we know the issues that we face here. We know about the crime, we know about tick. In America, we call it crack. And I have a play cousin who is a crackhead. And a play cousin is somebody who is not necessarily, your blood family. I'm sure there's something similar. Do you guys have play cousins here? Okay, what do you call them? Do you call them play cousins? No. So anyway, this cousin of mine or family friend was introduced to illicit substances as a young man. And by any measure, he is a brilliant man with an interesting mind, and he will turn 40 soon. He's been in and out of rehab for about 20 years. He's never had a job. He's never rented a flat. He's never finished his degree. He has impeccable fashion and never has to worry about where his next meal will come from. He lives with his parents at almost 40 in a windy house on their property. And this has caused a rift between his parents, his mother and father. His father wants to kick him out and force him to take accountability for his life. But his mother has him mentally placed at the age of 5. She is afraid that he will never be able to look after himself on the streets. And so she works herself to the bone to make sure that his basic needs are met. Beyond eating and sleeping, he doesn't have a care in the world. His father, on the other hand, will not make any contributions other than, hey, there's the windy house, go sort yourself out. Now, in thanks for his parents' support, he often robs them. He robs them to support his drug habit. And like I said, in America, we call those people crackheads, and here you call them tick cops. And over the years, I have asked him what he intends to do with his life. And naturally, he has no answer. He has never had to make a decision. The reality is he wouldn't even know how to begin the logical steps required to make adult decisions. He is living through his life through the prism of a 5-year-old boy, but his mother has kept him. He sees himself as she does, helpless. This has impacted his cognitive ability, despite him being very bright. He's never left his home city. He has never traveled outside of the boundaries of the state that he lives in. He spends his days waiting to be told what to do. He lives a life shaped by someone else's decisions, protected, enabled, and limited. He has never failed at anything because he has never tried anything. And there's the danger. When you don't make decisions, you lose the ability to take them. A secondhand life can feel safe, but it slowly erodes your capacity to live fully. The third parable is identity and limitation, and that relates to the continent that we live on. Now, South Africa is an absolutely beautiful country, and we are all very lucky to call it home. I see many parallels between this country and the United States of America. We both love to cook meat outside. You guys call it a braai, we call it a barbecue. Both countries are trendsetters in music. And then there are the not so pleasant similarities, such as the oppression of marginalized groups. In America, we had Jim Crow, where there was apartheid. In fact, if you didn't know, Heinrich Verwoerd was so impressed by the American psychological views on segregation and the separate but equal doctrine that he came to America, studied it, and it informed how he implemented the National Party's development of apartheid policies. And there was nothing equal about the separation of racial groups in either countries. Both of our countries are still grappling with the stain of legalized segregation. We can see it in housing, in health outcomes between the different groups, who gets to be the manager or the cleaner at our retail stores and shopping centers. And as a continent, Africa is still struggling to find her identity. In our attempt to meet global standards set by the West, our leadership often overlooks the unique needs, capabilities, and the environments of the indigents. And as much as Africa, and as much of the continent, we still have systems that have told people who they're allowed to be rather than exploring what they could be. How can we expand the capacity of our humanity? Even now, sometimes we look outward for validation. We copy, we imitate, we measure ourselves against standards that were never built for us. When you don't define yourself, you will be defined. And that is also a secondhand life. So what do? How do we make the shift towards a more honest life? How do we pivot? I don't know. I'm still trying to figure that out. But what I do know is that you guys are being raised as leaders, and leaders rise to the occasion, and those occasions will always shift. If you practice honesty, that is, assessing your situation for what it is and not what you feel it should be, by your entitlement, you will pivot faster and you will be much more effective in that rise. And so I'll finally leave you with this, from some lessons from a book that I just finished reading called The 4 Agreements. It was written by Don Miguel Ruiz. These are ideas that can guide you back to yourself, and they've been helpful to me as I try to sort out my own life's journey. The first agreement is be impeccable with your word. Speak truthfully. Words shape reality. The second one is don't take things personally. People act from their own stories, not yours. Number 3, don't make assumptions. Ask, learn, be curious. Number 4 is always do your best. Not perfect, just honest effort. If you can do that, something powerful happens. You begin to live a first-hand life, a life that fits you, a life that feels like yours. And one day, when somebody calls your name, it won't just be a label. It will be a story that you chose to write. Thank you. Oh, yes. Now is the time I'll take questions, if anybody has any. And you can ask me anything, literally anything.